Well, welcome back to the President's Room in the Maggot Clubhouse. I'm joined today by Paul Smith, someone who's got a lot of stories about the Maggots and a long history with the club. Paul, what was your first association with rugby here in Missoula?
Well, I was, I think it would be about 74. I'd just gotten back from the Navy. I was in Helena, and I moved over here to practice law with a Native American partner, and I knew rugby was going on here, so I kind of joined up, and I think one of the first games we went over to Seattle and played there, and that was my first.
And that was when it was just the university club, correct? Right?
Yeah, oh yeah,
right.
Definitely.
Yeah, and you had played rugby before.
I was well experienced.
Okay, and where was that you played before you came here?
It was kind of like it wasn't as good as the Maggots. It was the Kendrick Hall, which was affiliated with the University of San Francisco Law School, and Kendrick Hall was started by a brother-in-law, a really good friend of mine, and I was in the Navy there, and I spent most of my time in the Bay Area, in Oakland or San Francisco on the weekends, and learned some about rugby. The first game I had gone to practice, and we had just uniforms about like the rugby team had here. I was marking a fellow that was playing for the San Francisco 49ers. I think it was Kermit Daniels or something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, and he was on. They put me out on the wing because they didn't know crap. And
Standard for.
And I had a pair of rugby shoes on that were about 3 sizes too big. This son of a bitch will just cream me, which he would have, except that he didn't want to get injured, because. I'm sure he wasn't supposed to be playing rugby on the side. So anyway, he just, I never had to tackle him. He didn't have to run over me. And anyways, so it was a mutual respect. So anyway, I played for them, and we played down in Golden Gate with those big tournaments and stuff. But we always played, the lower level and got the crap beat out of us. Because most of us were just learning the rules, as we went, type of thing. So.
Did you go to the Monterey tournament back in those years? I think that
was a big one. Yeah.
I caught just the end of that. I think years later, but that was always good. Real hotbed for rugby, I think, at that time was the Bay Area, one of the places in America.
Yeah, they had really good teams, which we'd watch from the.
So by the time you got to Missoula, you were a seasoned veteran.
Seasoned as far as 2 years of rugby or whatever, yeah.
Right, which puts you 2 years ahead of most of the guys, I'm guessing, here, right?
Well, except the university team.
Okay.
They've been going for a few years. Yeah, a number of years. So they already were kind of like I think, who was it in the interview? Oh, I think Rex was saying like the All Blacks, nobody could coach the All Blacks. Well, nobody could coach the rugby players here because they, everybody had their own idea of what the rules were and all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah. And I was just a member of the team to begin with, so there was no self-respect. I was a Dangerfield.
Who were some of those guys that you remember from that time period that stick out in your mind that were also, showing up around that era?
There's some of them are in this, Skip and Beck and Lee Dilly and Bitey and Cousins and Nick, and that was Haler.
Right. Yeah, and that
Russ Cherry. He's been
Russ.
around forever too.
Yeah, and who were the guys that you played? I think at that, like, what were your main sort of matches? Did you have to go pretty far away?
Mainly Canada.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like Lethbridge and that kind of,
yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because were there any other Montana teams at that point, or that you remember playing, or?
Bozeman may have had a team. I don't know I don't think Great Falls did when I first started.
And then it took a couple of years to sort of transition into the Maggots. And do you remember that kind of how that happened? I've talked to some of the other guys from that era, and they seem to. The general consensus is that guys were sort of aging out of playing for the university
Yes.
team and needed another place to play. Is that kind of how you remember it?
Yeah, and I kind of stepped in after Tubby Thompson was leaving.
Right.
And so I was helped coaching the university team at that time. And then Skip took over too. And I knew, some fundamentals pretty good about the backs and stuff. I knew nothing about the forwards, and they wouldn't tell me either.
Right.
But they were the main force of the rugby team.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so but having a coach was a helpful thing, I'm guessing.
It was, yeah. And I mean, the forwards kind of coached themselves. I mean, they had some experience. Pigpen was in there too, and those, and yeah. So, Boots.
Okay.
Yeah, Boots is in there. Yeah.
I've talked to some of the guys, and I've heard those names mentioned a lot of times. But it sounds like it was even from the very beginning a very social thing as well.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
And what were some of the activities that were? It seemed like a lot of the guys, socialized outside of the team and outside of the rugby, and that is what drew in a lot more members. I remember Jamie Hoffman said that he was hang gliding with some guys, and that's how he came to the team, and those kinds of things. So, what were some of the social things that you remember doing around that time?
Drinking,
right? Well, that's number one.
Yeah. I think it was mainly I didn't involve myself as much as some of the team sport. They did hockey and stuff in off season and that type of stuff, and all sorts of things and I wasn't involved as much in those. I had to there was a lot going on in Missoula at that time, and there was a lot of stuff that I think I got them going to. I also had my group sponsored a testicle festival.
Okay.
So that brought in, all the maggots came there, and that was a fun time.
And you were obviously working at that point, having already gone to law school and made it here. So it had to be a little more difficult for you to carve out free time, I'm guessing.
Well, but I was one of those attorneys that cared more about having fun than I was a public defender.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you ever have to defend any maggots?
Oh, yeah.
Tell me about that a little bit.
No, I can't. That's
Lawyer-client privilege.
I can't. I was probably right along with them, too.
Yeah.
Doing it. But I did represent some of them. I probably can talk about as far as where it wasn't any charges brought.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Yeah. Charges dismissed kind of thing.
Well, yeah. I remember probably there's a number of bus incidents that are just hilarious. And I don't know, it's probably been chronicled, but one of the major ones I had were up in Canada, going down the highway or whatever, just blazing sun, great day or whatever, and we had the usual party going on, and didn't have time to stop because everybody had to pee, take a piss, so we had just opened the door to the bus and hold on to the guy's belt, and he'd take a piss out the
into
side.
the road, right?
So I'm sitting in the back up by the pit, and I see the pee kind of hitting the windows, and then I look behind me, and there's this car that's got its windshield wipers on. Damn, that doesn't look good. Especially when it turns out it was a RMCP.
So
he pulled us over, Geez, he gets on the bus. He says, "Is there any alcohol on this bus?" And he saw this keg sitting there. He said, "You're rugby players, aren't you?"
Yeah.
He said, I got 15 minutes left of my duty. But he said, so I'm not going to bother dealing with you guys, but don't be pissing off the side of the bus. And so as soon as it's 5 o'clock, we started pissing again.
Right. He's done, right?
He was off.
Yeah.
So
and that bus was that the first bus, or was that one of the rented ones?
Who knows?
Yeah.
I think it probably was one of the first ones.
Yeah. The time period of I think some of the guys remember things in the era of different buses. And so those first ones were a little bit different because I remember talking to Skip, and he said some of them were rentals and some of them.
I was very non-mechanical and stuff. That stuff just ran by me. So
you got on and went where it took you, right? Like
fun, that was my main.
And how long did you end up playing for with the Maggots once they started?
I played till '81 as far as being on the, and then I played in a couple tournaments after that with them, and then I played on the Flies, and I had an embarrassing moment at the end with the Flies when actually Skip and Cousins were involved in that, where I've been over, somebody kicked the ball and I was out playing, I think outside center or whatever, and I turned to pass it to Skip, and he went, I think he was playing fullback, went blazing by me, and I couldn't quite make. So instead of kicking back to the forwards, I thought, God, I was trapped, and I kicked a touch. Of course, I no longer had any leg behind me, and their wing or their or fullback, they just ran by me and they scored. Cousin was pissed off. Jeez, what a way to
just like giving away a try, right?
Yeah, we got beat. I felt bad about that one.
Even still, right?
Oh yeah. Still
so those first years with the Maggots must have been pretty interesting as you guys were kind of transitioning from the university to the Maggots. Do you have was there a time period when you felt like, okay, now we're the Maggots, and before we were the university, and now we've got a real distinct team approximately?
I think it was pretty almost right away. There was, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was pretty distinct right to begin. I mean, because we'd been hanging around some of the old boys for probably too long anyway. Right. So anyway, they finally got rid of us and.
Kind of moved on to that the next there. So, if you were here around till 81, 82-ish, that means you went on some of the tours?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, what were some of those tour memories that you...
Well, the main ones I went on was the New Zealand one, of course.
Okay, yeah.
And actually, I coached on New Zealand because McClanahan was couldn't make it or something like that. But coaching over there was the same sort of... I was just
herding cats and
oh God, worse than that. And most of our injuries were not on the field; they were falling off the bus or not showing up because they were drunk or whatever. So we just sort of
And any of those the teams that you played there or events stick in your mind from that time period at the university in Dunedin or some of the other places? I know just some of the other guys have had a few stories of different things that happened, and I was wondering if anything sticks in your mind from that New Zealand tour.
Well, I picked up my nickname there, which was the bald-headed chicken fucker.
Right.
Yeah, and that was and that was, there was like I think 4 of us rooming together before we started or holding out before we started the actual rugby tour, and Jim Beck, who couldn't be embarrassed by shitting down a chimney.
Right.
Apparently got embarrassed about a rumor that he was having an affair with this Maori woman, and he thought that I ratted on him.
But it wasn't you.
So it wasn't me, but so he started to think that I was a bald-headed chicken fucker. And I said it was a damn lie that I don't like bald-headed chickens.
Yeah. Well, that's true. Language there, right?
Regular chicken's okay, but
not bald-headed one. Yeah, that's no good.
So I remember that. Like I say, I remember some of the injuries off the field, but mainly it was some of the fun part. And of course, I think that was brought up in the interviews we've done before. We really learned about the need to have a club type of thing as far as carrying on for something that would outlast our ages, Yeah. And that has been accomplished. Obviously, we're sitting in it.
We're sitting in it, right? So that's.
And I was not fortunate because I feel guilty about that. Is that most of the hard work was done by these guys that after I left. I mean, Cousins and Skip and Bitey and Logan and Pigpen and the list goes to Haler and all those guys just, they worked their butts off for all these years to keep this thing going.
Stuck
and
with
it. Paid off. Yeah.
A lot of stops and starts and almosts and almost try this and almost buy that land. I remember some of it, and so I remember what almost considered a triumph to eventually have this after a really long time of wanting something. Yeah.
Yeah, and they persevered.
Yeah.
And it was that camaraderie that we had as a team, and as Maggots and his friends, and like you say, people was hang gliding or float the river with pig pen, and so I've married Joe, and with Jamie, and fishing and things. You know, there's a lot of stuff that went on outside just your regular friendships that you might have if it was just a sport for the purpose of winning type of thing.
It's not just like going out and playing softball after work
no,
kind of thing.
No.
And that's something that, as somebody who played before, it has to be something different for the Maggots. Almost everybody has indicated that the Maggots had a really different vibe to them than anywhere else they had played or anywhere else that they had been involved in a club like this. What's the essence of that? For you, what was it?
I think that, it was having fun, but taking rugby seriously as putting out your best effort in trying to win.
Right.
I mean, I don't think there was any quitters. There was never any quitters that lasted long on the Maggots or rugby team. There's some that performed better than others or whatever. But that was the beauty about a team too. It's as you know, it's a team effort. You can have some stars as far as physically athletes, and you can have some that probably are a drag on the team if you're, for instance, on the backs, Hollywood, Kurt Mesa's outstanding, kicker and fast on offense, but he didn't like to play defense. And I asked him, I said, "Come on, you got to tackle." He said, "They don't pay me to play defense." so nobody pays you.
Offense only, right?
Yes. Yeah. And everybody, and nobody was judgmental as far as, you didn't get down on a person. You might give them crap about
hey, make
this
that tackle
or whatever, but you didn't. It wasn't that you'd learn from your mistakes, and you usually realized them. Well, I will tell one thing about when I first started coaching the university team. The first practice I showed up for, it was an indication of what was to come when I was coach. There was just myself and my dog, and nobody else showed up. So then everybody had a different idea of what offsides meant.
Right.
And I had the only one with a rule book.
Yeah, but they actually had it right.
Yeah, and I tried to pick pen. Oh no, it was all related to when the whistle blew or where they were. And so we wound kind of through some of those things.
Yeah.
I got the rule book.
Yeah.
That isn't right. So, like I say, I was just one of the peers. I wasn't.
Right.
If you're
you weren't the authoritative voice
of a coach that comes in that knows anything.
Right.
Tubby was that. So.
Yeah. That's funny. So tell us a little bit about your background of what you think set you up for becoming a part of this maggot thing. So obviously you're Montana native, but you said you joined the Navy and left, and then came back.
I was serving our country. I was I was going to be drafted probably. So I was in law school, and last year, and I had a high draft number, and so I joined the Naval Reserve, and I had to do I think 2.5 years active. I could have actually, when I graduated from law school, I could have taken a commission, but it was like a 5-year commitment. So I just went in as a 25-year-old in the barracks with the 19-year-olds. I was kind of a grandfather.
Yeah, the old guy, right?
The old guy. They all had beer in the vending machines. And then I had all my friends down in the Bay Area, and so I took up rugby then, and I was having fun down there. I mean, it was just a no-brainer job on the Navy base. The admiral that ran it just hated me because we could grow beards then. And I was supposed to go down and take minutes at the captain's mast, kind of like a JP court, and he'd read me out, and finally he said, I wasn't even supposed to come down there anymore.
Right.
and then we were supposed to drive them around once on Sundays to have a weekend on that. And I wanted to play rugby and stuff, but you had to take a test before you could drive the Admiral around. And I failed the test every single time. Apparently, I convinced them we didn't have sidewalks in Montana. So I'd drive over the,
I don't know.
I'd drive over the cliff, so I didn't have to drive the old fart around either. So yeah, I could play rugby. You know, had fun,
Yeah, it made you get you right in there,
Yeah.
though, right? Like,
So actually, and that team, they were a social team too,
okay.
but not like the Maggots. I mean,
Right.
because it was you know.
Well, at that time, there would have been some like the old school clubs that I remember from that would have been Golden Gate Rugby and
Yeah.
San Francisco Rugby Club and the Blues for Berkeley and those clubs, and those are some of the best clubs in America, I would imagine, at that time. So
we had the worst of the best. I mean, we
Yeah.
had the fourth tier that were struggling to learn the game too, like we
Right.
were. So yeah.
Yeah. So when you came back to Montana and Missoula and started playing rugby with the Maggots, were you
At the university.
Oh, with the university,
Oh, yeah.
sorry, and then with the Maggots. Did you see how your rugby developed from how you first started, and what did you feel like were your strengths as a rugby player?
Mainly my knowledge of the backs and the fundamentals of what the backs were to do, and then I also saw what the scenario was, is that the forwards were the force that was win or lose the games with the university team at that time, and later the Maggots. I mean, you had just a tremendous Cousins and Boots and Skip and Bitey.
Who's Boots? That's one I have.
Goodall.
Oh, okay.
Goodall, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if he was interviewed or not. No. But yeah.
Yeah.
So they were forces, and then we had really good flankers then too for defense. We always had great. We had Nick as a scrum half, and there's Beck. And he could. So a lot of the times it didn't get out to the backs for a good reason.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, the force was in the forward.
That's where.
So
Yeah.
So mainly we what little I had was coaching on the fundamentals of playing defense and not letting the gap and playing position. If the fullback came up, somebody had to cover it, and being when the ball went down and you got tackled, you had to send it back up, that type of thing. So, and taking the occasion when we would very, very occasionally drop a ball or something, taking shit from the forward,
The forwards, and nobody wants to turn around and go backwards, right?
Or they'd say, with you, and you turn around and there'd be somebody 40 yards back.
So, of the players that you remember, you've mentioned a few of them here. Were there ones that you felt like, if you were thinking of a Maggot team that sticks in your head from a road trip or a tour or something, who would have been those sort of core guys that were there for a long time that overlapped with you? You know what I mean, like your era.
Well, I mean the ones that Cousins and Bitey and Skip and Haler and Hoffman, Beck. Lee Dilly, Art Cochran, Maurice. I remember one time I got in touch when I was coaching the university team, and I think it was Maurice's parents came in from California or whatever, and I had to select as the coach who was going to be the scrum half, and the other, I won't say it was probably maybe more talented, I had more experience.
Right, but
I started Maurice because this is a fun game. His parents are there,
right?
So I got some crap for that.
I'll bet.
But anyway, I mean, it was a type of deal, and I never regretted it. You did things that were the betterment for the team, or that would build them up too. So
Absolutely.
I don't know if we won or lost the game, but anyway,
it doesn't
didn't
matter, right?
Yeah,
It doesn't matter. That's part of the thing. And so in your, I know that you spent time as an attorney for a while, but then the majority of your career was as a full-time rancher, or you did both, or?
Well, I practiced Native American law. I had a Native American partner, and I mean, there was I dealt with we were counsel for the tribe, which is a whole new thing, the Grovons and stuff. So dealing with that, and about in '81, my parents were getting elderly, and I had a ranch, and I saw that the really successful quote attorneys that were making a lot of money, they were buying ranches.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm never going to make much money, so I better go home and help my parents and run the ranch. So that's why I went back in '81 to do that.
And you still had obviously connections with rugby, all the guys.
I'd come back and played in tournaments after that for a couple of years, and then like I say, the flies, and I'd come over, and I never did crap as far as the Maggot Fest. I never had any duties after that, so they were really kind to me. So, yeah.
Well, it was. I kind of had a similar thing where I started playing with the Maggots, but I lived elsewhere, and so I would show up for tournaments and things, and that was always a better deal than because then you can enjoy it more. And now, when you live here, you got to actually do stuff, right? So, so do you remember the first Maggot Fest?
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah, well,
it's sort of like Ken Kesey says, if you can remember there.
You weren't there.
You weren't there.
Right.
I kind of remember those kind of fuzzy things. It might have been the first or the second or.
Yeah, was that Woodstock he was talking about? That was like if you remember it all, you weren't really there or something. I think it was. So
actually, we had a lot going on in Missoula in those days, and we still do. But Ed McClanahan, who was one of the merry pranksters, was teaching up here, and he was a friend of Ken Kesey, and Ken Kesey came here, and there was a lot of stuff going on on that. And
was that I think around the time of Aber Day keggers, those kinds of things as well?
There was some great couple Aber Day keggers. One was at I think it was the one that where Pigpen came in on his hang glider and knocked the power off. And but there's 1,000 kegs of beer.
Yeah.
And Tubby Thompson, he and I had him out there, and I won't say what sort of drugs we were on, but anyway, I could see him. I was up by the stage, and I could see him, and he was sitting with my dog Kelly in the middle of the crowd in there or whatever, big grin on his face.
Yeah, just enjoying it.
Yeah, just enjoying it. So yeah.
Yeah, having a good old time.
Yeah. So it was fun.
Yeah, he was the first one that we interviewed.
Yeah.
To start off this project.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, unbelievable person as far as obviously his knowledge and his expertise and his career in sports and the whole thing.
Right.
I mean,
the whole deal.
Person. Yeah.
So before the clubhouse, I think the main sort of generator of stories for the Maggots, other than maybe Maggot Fest, was the bus, and because it's associated with various trips and going places and doing things. I see that you have a little cheat sheet list over here with some bus memories on it. Give us a little sample of some of those times.
Well, we've already gone over the one with being off the bus. Another one that I thought was really hilarious is I forget where we were, but it was we were really celebrating. I think Dewey was playing the accordion and had the beer going. It was after a game, and we're trolling around, getting away from wherever we were playing. And I was sitting up front next to the drivers. And the drivers, by the way, were always really responsible. It's much more responsible than everybody else, obviously.
Right.
So anyway, I forget who the driver was, and he said, "What's the height of this bus?" And I said, "I don't know. I think it's 9.6 or whatever."
Yeah.
And he looked, and actually, the bus was higher than the
underpass.
And when you hit that thing, and all of a sudden there was just dead silence because there's a big wrinkle coming right down the middle of the bus, and the mirrors are flying off and stuff. They were going slower. and slower, and then we popped out. And we did
To big cheers, right?
yeah, and went back to party. So. And
Made that one.
And then another one was, this one, the reason I kind of wore this, and it ties into other stuff, is that we're up at the Whoop Up Rugby in Lethbridge, and we had to put on a skit. I think it was one of our first tours, or it might have been. Anyway, we all went to the secondhand stores or whatever, and I bought these tails.
Right.
These right here. And anyway, we got to the border a little late, and we couldn't get across. So we just all piled out and slept on the ground and everything. So the next day, the people came from the border check or whatever, and they went around. They asked me if I had bought anything in Canada. I said, yeah. And he said, well, what did you pay for it? I said, $2. He says, you were taken. But the reason that this is important is that I did get the privilege of marrying or be officiating at a lot of rugby weddings or whatever. So I always wore these tails and whatever. And much to the chagrin of a lot of future mother-in-laws of the, and then you got a rugby player.
Yeah, I'm sure, right? Like it's not the.
We all got along fine on that.
Yeah.
And when on Bitey, there's some usual ones there. Bitey got married on boats, so we're out on the Clark Fork or whatever, and joined the boats and stuff. That was kind of unique.
Oh, nice.
Darling, sweetheart, got married up at the mansion. There was one at Holland Lake, and which reminds me of sort of a similar story. Hollywood. I don't think I officiated at his wedding, but there was a place called Dutton, a little tiny town. They had Dutton Fun Days.
Okay.
And Terry was out of town, my wife, and so I was on the ranch, and I thought, I'll get over there. And I got over there kind of late, and I didn't know where the rugby ever playing a game. The rugby field was, but I went into a bar and I said, have you seen any rugby players? And you know where the rugby team's being played? I said, I don't know, there's some naked guys just walked through here.
Yep, that's them.
That'd be them. And so they had, the team on one sideline on that, the team, they were always pulling pranks, but they'd all taken those little neon, stuff, and put it on their tongues.
Oh, the glow,
The glow stuff, so they stick out their tongues and they're all purple or whatever. So and then they got unfurled Mesa, Hollywood, and they had taken a bowling ball and got a chain through there and put it around his ankle, so he was lugging this bowling ball around all night. So and then at the end of the night I went over and he was sitting in the back of my truck he'd gotten in there and had a hammer and was trying to break the chains off.
Unsuccessfully.
So,
oh boy.
So that was fun.
Any other of those bus incidents that ring a bell?
One more. It was funny. We were up and maybe it was Lethbridge again, but we were coming back through Cardston, which is a Mormon town or whatever.
Okay.
And I forget the skit or whatever. Somebody was dressed up as a monkey or in a gorilla suit on the bus.
Right.
So we had this whole garbage bag full of beer cans. So we thought it'd be really cool to go over by the Mormon church and drop them off.
Dump them out.
So he runs across whoever it was, lawn, and dumps them in there. And then all of a sudden the church doors open, these people start coming out. Oh God, he's running back, he gets on the bus. Man, if I can get through Cardston before they arrest us.
Yeah, before they track us down to the other side of town,
So
right?
I was really nervous about that one.
Oh boy. So when you have these bunch of different personalities, shall we say, with the Maggots, and you were, a legal representative in the town. Was there a sort of a more relaxed attitude in those days about just, as long as you didn't get in too much trouble, everything was okay? Is that kind of how it was?
Well, you know, he probably had Tubby Thompson and wrote a dissertation on it. Yeah,
Yeah.
Sports. He came down and, you know, a very serious researcher.
Right.
He was right in the middle of it. I mean, what a way to write a dissertation.
Yeah.
You know, just involve yourself in the research. And just
So he was like undercover throughout.
Yeah.
Had to assume the personality in order to get the real.
They're different. Definitely, probably in all sports type of. You know, it wasn't just rugby, but yeah, I always wondered. You know, there's a big scandal on the football team or whatever, but they never tried to. I don't know why not run the Maggots out of town. You know, it would have been a lot easier. I think. But they did. But I think somebody said to in one of the interviews, we weren't really harming anybody. I mean, the stuff was.
Sort of victimless crimes, or harming themselves,
yourselves,
as opposed to
an illegal smile, you know, lasts a long while, you know, type of thing. And I think, one other thing that you could blame the Maggots for the rugby team is one of our last testicle festivals in '81 was I lived out at Rock Creek.
Okay.
And after the party, some of the rugby players went over to the Rock Creek anyway, and they had their shirts on. Well, the next year, lo and behold, they started their own testicle festival.
And that's the one that's
it was but it was a completely different thing. Those people were you know, way beyond.
Right.
Way beyond just having fun.
Right.
They were, and they got finally closed down because of some of the activities and deaths and stuff.
And some drunk driving.
But I always, and they got written up in Sports Illustrated. And I came to me one spring. Baloney came to you by the rugby team.
That's how they found out about it, right? Yeah. And you still have that festival in Boulder? Or?
Still have it, yeah. You know, and it used to be, unfortunately, we had a lot of, again, how friendships and things go. Some people, last year was about one of the few times, and I usually got out better invitations and stuff, but the Maggots, some would show up, you know, and sometimes they still do, but yeah, I'm starting to kind of retire and let my daughter take over now. Maybe I'll get more of a connection. And I think the first time I had a festival over there, the Maggots came over, and I had just moved into this place, and I was from there, so I knew the people. But you're still a little nervous coming back. And so the Maggot bus couldn't make it up this hill that we were in, so they were parked down at the bottom of the hill, and I was really nervous. God, Terry, I wonder when the Maggots are down
what are they doing down there?
Probably our new neighbors who I knew are just going to be so I got the binoculars and I looked up, and all the Maggots were sitting out there having coffee with you know,
with the neighbors.
No word. And after that, I got one of my best friends now, married the daughter of the people that were living there, and lives there now actually at that place. And their son, or his son, Bo Pallister, played rugby for the.
Yeah, no, I remember Bo played for the Jesters and played for the Maggots. And, lives here in town, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Bo.
So and another one I forgot to mention too, as far as friends, Rock Ringling.
Yeah.
And Tom France. I married him. Well, I married him once. And then, and then I was supposed to marry him again, but I was on the Smith River, and I might have made it back, but I said, you better, you know, I'm about 12 miles out. And
it's tough.
I didn't marry him the second time.
What's your record? What's your percentages of marriages?
It's sort of like baseball, you know.
Right. If you hit 300, you're doing great.
200. Success, you know.
Sounds like you gotta kind of take the good with the bad.
Right? Don't keep track.
Practice.
Well, I didn't want to rattle off the names of the ladies that were married the first time or whatever, because they may not still be around.
Yeah. So, what is it? Do you think that? I mean, your friends now, 50 years later, with a lot of the guys that you played rugby with. Are you friends with guys from your law school or from the Navy? Not as much, I'm guessing, right?
No.
And why is that? What is it about rugby and the Maggots in particular that sort of engenders that feeling of camaraderie and there's a lot of sports you can play, but I don't think it carries over from, say, softball to 50 years of friendship as it does with rugby. What is it about the sport?
A lot more fun.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the basic things, is
Yeah.
that it's a social sport, and besides having an intense desire to play your best or whatever, and the teamwork and stuff, there's a lot of that. You know, if you're gonna stay with those people when you're on the road or whatever, you're not gonna be kicking them in the
Right.
wrong spot during the game or whatever, because they might get you later on.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think the fun, that is a big deal, and the camaraderie of that, and they were just good character. I mean,
Yeah.
lawyers are, for the most part. I didn't even go to my 50th
Yeah.
deal, of which was just a couple of years ago. 50 years of practicing law,
Right.
because I didn't associate with lawyers too much.
Right.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, well, it's a common theme that I see amongst the people that I'm interviewing for this series, and as a rugby player myself for an awful long time, my best friends are still the guys I played college rugby with, 40 years later, and that's I think a real common thing amongst the rugby community. And I was wondering what your take was on it. Just
Same. It's just that you build up that, I don't know any of their politics particularly or whatever. It doesn't matter, because that wasn't part of it,
Right.
It's just that.
And you said you played in the backs. Would you have a position that you liked better than another one, or that you felt like you were especially
I was
confident
on the center. Yeah.
Okay.
And I was pretty good at defense.
Right.
I could tackle good. I've always been a defensive, whether it's a lawyer or
Yeah.
or that in basketball. I mean, never.
Yeah.
I was fairly quick for a few feet, and and I could
A burst.
and then the other team would catch up to you.
Yeah. Sometimes that's all you need. Just get through the line, right? Like,
You kick it.
yeah. You still watch some rugby? You come over to Missoula?
Well, I haven't done as much, but I'm gonna, now that I'm getting the ranch stuff straightened out. I hope to.
Yeah, feel like you can get over for a...
And of course, the Maggot Fest, it seemed like it was always on Mother's Day, because most rugby players had mothers that didn't want to claim them.
Yeah.
So they didn't care if they showed up or not.
Yeah, it's now...
So you're where, dear?
Yeah.
Happy Mother's Day. Wait a second. You're missing something. And the flies was always tough too. I played on that, but the trouble with the flies was that a bunch of old guys, but there was always, you never had enough people, so they were always filling in with a ringer that was only 40 years old.
Right, exactly, right.
And it
That
just
one
run
guy.
by your mind and say,
Yeah. Nobody likes that guy, right? Show up there.
Yeah.
Did you have did you go on any other tours besides the New Zealand?
Bahamas.
The Bahamas. Okay.
Yeah, that was a fun tour.
Now I know I was told to ask you about this fox and hound story from New Zealand.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, despite what Rex said, he kind of lined us up with people that he knew we would probably get along with, and I was an older guy, and so he teamed me up with this lawyer. He was I think a tax lawyer or whatever, but he was a nice guy. But he says, "Do you hunt?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, what do you hunt?" And I said, "Well, dear, no." He says, "Do you chase animals and jump fences with?" I said, "Well, I wear a Western saddle or whatever."
Yeah.
And that's what I've ridden all my life. He says, "Well, we're going. Why don't you stay here?" So I stayed there, and first he took me out and They jump barbed wire fences, by the way, that are like, chest high.
And you're like, what the heck?
So he got me out to this ground and he said, well, take it over to this jump. Try out. So I went up and the horse stopped and I just He said, well, give it one of those Western yells. So I gave it a Western yell. So the next day we went off and man, I knew enough about riding, but you get those English or jumping saddles, but the horses were jumping, like I say, chest high things, and we chased what we're chasing, they didn't have fox over there, they were chasing hares.
Oh, okay.
So then at the end of the day, they said, well, we know that you're playing rugby, and why didn't you continue on with the team? I said, well, when they heard that we were chasing hares, they said I could stay. So
Nice.
that was it.
That was how that worked.
Yeah.
Now that Bahamas tour, that was one that it seemed like it was kind of put together at the last minute. You're supposed to go to Jamaica or something originally, right? Like,
Well, I don't know.
yeah. Okay. The story I heard was that Jamaica was dry during Easter week or something. And,
Could be, yeah.
and-
We don't want to go to a dry port.
Right, exactly. That wouldn't seem to make sense with the Maggots and rugby.
Well, it'd be really, wouldn't play well.
Would have been unpopular, I'm guessing.
Yeah, the skits wouldn't have went over.
Yeah.
The Dance of the Flaming Assholes probably wouldn't.
Yeah, I think that one probably would not have, during Easter week, probably would not have gone over super well, I think.
Yeah.
Are there any of the guys that you remember that you just kind of lost touch with, that you wonder where they are, or that you have some kind of their fond memory of, and they just kind of disappeared from the scene or moved away or anything like that? Hopefully, maybe we'll connect with some of them with this.
I was
kind of
kind of going through some of the old lists, and Caveman was one. I don't know whatever happened to him. He used to kill trees when we were over, and they said, "What are you doing? Kill trees."
Kill trees.
Yeah, he was a good rugby player.
Yeah.
So he was one that of course I haven't seen Art Cochran for years and years, and I hadn't seen Boots until I came over to the old boys thing
With Tubby.
With the Tubby thing,
Yeah.
more or less. So some of those, but most of them, some of them, you just sort of kind of like Squeak, and there was different ones that, Psycho, I haven't seen Psycho in years. There's ones that you just, they're there in your memory, and it's like, well, with old friends.
Yeah.
Once you see them, you're just right back like it was 2 days ago.
Yeah, like I haven't seen you
If you can
in a
remember,
week.
if
It
they
might
can
be
remember.
30 years. It could be a week, right?
But like at that old boy deal, some of those guys they hadn't seen for 40 years, and they had nicknames, and in 40 years or 50 years or whatever it was, the looks kind of changed a little too.
Right, exactly, right. Different guys, like, hey, with that,
Yeah.
you're such and such, yeah.
Like Dewey was a little bit slimmer in those days.
As we all were, I'm guessing.
Dewey was on the social end was great,
Yeah.
And Pigpen was, he was amazing on the social end too and stuff.
Any teams that you remember playing back in that day where you were just really like, whoa, like this team was, as whether it was in Canada or whether it was at a tournament or something that you were really impressed by their play?
We played one, I can't remember, over in Vancouver, that they were always, a couple of times I think they were really tough.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there was one down south, that we played it.
Well, you guys used to have to go of quite a distance to play. So was that considered a normal thing to go for a few overnights, or was it weekend tours and
they were tough. And I know once, I think it was Seattle we went to, and then the team decided not to play us, and we went 600 miles or whatever. I think we got a pickup game or something. We were a little pissed off at that
I'll
one.
bet. Just couldn't get the guys out or something.
Well,
right?
they were there and they were tired or something, and they forgot they were on their schedule, and it was not a good
bad excuse. Right?
Get it together, play. You invited us. So.
Anything else on your list there that we haven't covered that needs to make it into the interview here? Because I know there's some ones that sometimes you think afterwards, like, oh, I should have said this. Like,
well, there was I know we had a hard time in the first part finding a venue because I remember once at St. Ignatius Church. I don't think it was us that were doing a skit where they were carrying a naked guy as a funeral procession. I forget what they were chanting. And then the church all of a sudden opened up, and the parishioners came out about 7:30. So, yeah, we didn't have that venue the next year.
Yeah, that might
So
have
I had
been,
a
that
hard
one
time.
was gone then, right? Nice.
And here's one that was I thought was funny was we're floating up on the flathead. I forget what team, but we went up on the on the river there, and there was a big official sign that the tribe had there. It said, dangerous still, your bodies will not be recovered by the tribe or whatever. So I know on my little raft we had 13 rugby players. And
Dangerously overloaded.
it was, and we got, and there was some guy out fly fishing, and we kind of went by, and it wasn't a maggot, it was somebody on our boat, jumped off the goddamn raft and swam over there. The guy did, what in the hell's going on? And he just doused him in water and swam back to our overcrowded deal. So that was kind of funny.
Maggoty behavior
Yeah,
there.
Maggoty, yeah, he was,
Yeah. Was there a time period when you thought the Maggots sort of reached their peak as a team playing, that you thought like, that we've really gotten to this point and we're as good as we have been or going to be?
No.
It was always getting better, or always getting,
yeah, like
Yeah.
I say, we were just kind of starting up the curve when I left. So
Okay.
So yeah, and then it just when I came over and watched, it just kept going up.
yeah.
And I guess I think that maybe I'll bring that up to. I looked up the mission statement,
Okay.
and the mission statement. It's our goals. It's in the official all that jazz. Was the goals were 1, to wit, 2, to play rugby, and 3, to have fun. And so I concluded, as the number 3, definitely having fun has been accomplished and is still being accomplished.
No shortage there.
Oh, yeah. And to play rugby, we've always been improving and are continuing to improve. And that's because of the camaraderie and the desire to learn your position and do whatever you can for the team. And then the first one, to wit, that goal, I think that all our members, past and present, are halfway there.
Nice. Cheers to that one. Well, Paul, it's been a pleasure talking with you. So I've heard tell of a story where you did some on the spot lawyering at a car accident on the way to a rugby match up in our lead. You remember that one?
Yes, I do. One of my better defenses, I think. So we were going along, and I don't know which car I was in, but there was 2 cars, and this guy pulled right in front of it was Harwood or whatever was driving, and ran into him. And it was just obvious that there was no way you could avoid it.
Right.
So we kind of went over to the side and whatever, and so I jumped out and ran up there to do a sterling defense. It's sort of like at the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Hopefully, they'll let us by because they're.
Yeah.
So anyway, the guy shows up. I don't know if it was a tribal police or highway patrol or whatever, but he starts taking down all the facts, and nobody was drinking as far as the Maggots were concerned.
Yeah.
I don't know if the other guy was or not, but he really there was no avoiding the accident because it was his fault.
Yeah.
So I knew it, and it was just cut and dry. And so at the end of it, I demanded that they not give us a ticket or whatever, and he said, well, I don't know. And then he told the guy that that caused the accident. He says, well, I might be a few minutes here, but he says, tell your mom and dad I'll be over for dinner in about 20 minutes. Well, I knew we were screwed right there. It's like
yeah.
you know,
You're in it there, right? Like,
jury is out, the judge is out, and you might as well just
Yeah,
cough it up. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're fine. Take your lickings and go on. So we did. But yeah.
yeah. Well, sometimes it's that's why there's a home field advantage. Right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Hey, well, Paul, it's been a real pleasure talking with you and sharing some memories of the university and the Maggots, and look forward to watching some rugby in the near future with you.
Looking forward to being here and watching it with you too.
All right, cheers.
Cheers.